Hello, hello. This is
Hello.
Neil Cañeda with Fondest Time Podcast, and we have our special guest, Amanda Fisher, and she's all the way from Australia, so it's pretty amazing. Um,
Mm.
how you doing? And
I'm really good. And yeah, with technology now, it doesn't feel like I'm far away at all. So yeah,
no, that's pretty. It make it really convenient, right? It make it really easy and opens a lot of doors that it might have seemed
correct.
closed before.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I got my cat kind of decided to join us. She's kind of slapping me with her tail. Um, but can you tell us about yourself and you know how everything started? You know,
So yeah.
title
Sorry.
in your title, your tagline.
Well, my tagline. So I'll start off. I'm a CPA. That's my training, and I did that for a lot of years, just the standard run of the mill CPA type work. And what I found was that I was teaching my clients to understand their numbers. So they'd come to me with no idea, and they would, over a period of time, I'd find that I'd be teaching them what they needed to know about their numbers. And somewhere in the course of some of that, someone started to call me the cash flow queen. And a few people, I sort of said, oh, someone mentioned that I was the cash flow queen because I'd found cash in their business and helped them to, identify and work through on some cash flow challenges. And I mentioned it to a few of my business colleagues and said, oh, that's really good. That's really good. And I went, no, but I do so much more than cash flow because I'm about helping business owners to understand what their numbers are to make good decisions. So it's more than just cash flow. It's profit, it's planning, it's management numbers, it's all sorts of things. So I resisted for quite a few years. And then somewhere along the line, it came up again. And I went, you know what, Amanda, just embrace it. And it's been awesome. I get people now who I was at an event and I got in the lift afterwards and they said, oh, you're the cash flow queen. I went, yeah, I am. Kind of in my mind, like, how did you remember? How did you get that? So don't necessarily remember I'm Amanda Fisher, but remember that I'm the cash flow queen. And so I'm the cash flow queen.
Yeah, that's catchy, and if it make them remember you, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't take it on for that purpose, but effectively from a branding perspective, it has been really, really good. And, Amanda Fisher is a fairly common name. There are, if you look up Amanda Fisher, there are probably thousands of us in the world. So with a very, common name with lots of people differentiating so that if someone does happen to know my name, finding the right Amanda Fisher, having that branding of the cash flow queen really, really, really makes a big difference. And it works in well with what I do today, and that is I'm what I call a financial educator. So what I do all the time is help and educate people about their numbers. So I'm not doing the tax work and all the normal CPA type stuff anymore. Plenty of other people capable of doing that, but my skill set is in that education kind of realm, and I really enjoy it when people start to see and kind of they go, oh, now I get it. So it's very rewarding.
It's very important because a lot of business entrepreneurs, they kind of start with the idea, right? And they don't start with the fundamentals. And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
You won't know what to look for if you don't know. So
correct.
and we kind of learn by doing, but sometimes those doing costs you a lot.
Yeah.
Reaching out to people that can give you the information that can really help us is very important. You know,
Correct.
it's very
Yeah, yeah,
important.
and
Uh,
yeah, the
it lasts long.
yeah. Well, there we go. Yeah, I think the thing is, you know, we start as entrepreneurs, we've got this brilliant idea of what we're going to do. We start out in business, and then we realize that at some point that we're missing a few key foundational things. It could be marketing, sales and marketing. You know, sales and marketing is an area that a lot of people don't really understand. And then there's the, you know, legal, HR, employment issues when you get to the point where you need to start employing people. And there's the numbers. And they're the three main areas that most people don't have a lot of understanding about when they start in business. And all of them are equally important. It's like a three-legged stool or a four, or a chair with four legs and you got one missing. You may have two or three missing, which is even worse. You're kind of like trying to stand on a pogo stick or something and balance on that. So my area obviously is the numbers. That's what I love. But equally, there are sometimes other areas that are just as important that we don't know as entrepreneurs, or we don't know perhaps well enough. And when I first went into practice, I mean, you know, CPAs, we're trained to do the tax work, the numbers, all that stuff. We're not trained on how to run a business, or at least not when I did my training, we weren't. So when I first went out on my own, quite some many years ago now, I had no idea. And I started a business on my own the first time due to a partnership dissolution, and I had, you know, a little chunk of clients to start me off. That was great. And I was quite innovative at that time because I set fixed fees at a time when people, accounting profession, didn't do that. And a few of my clients said to me right from the beginning, they said, look, tell you what, I'm going to pay you 12 months up front because you're going to need the cash flow. I went, oh, gee, thank you for the payment. Not even realizing how the cash flow was going to impact. And they saved my bacon, because without that money up front, I would have run out of money very, very quickly and had a serious cash flow problem at that point. I have had them at other points in my life, but at that stage, that was a big learning for me. My clients knew more about running a business at that stage than I did. So it was a massive, big learning curve, even though I understand the numbers, which, you know, you kind of think, well, how can you get that wrong as an accountant? But it's a different type of numbers, different type of operation. So I learned that one relatively young, luckily, but and realized that I needed to understand about sales and marketing, and you know, legal issues become challenged down the track at some point as well.
Yes, and you know, and sometimes you don't know exactly what you need, or like, you know, just marketing, just to put a example. You be an entrepreneur and somebody tell you, okay, let's do marketing for you for $500,000. I'm gonna market you stuff. You do the ad, but how do you do the ad? You don't even get your message clear, or you don't even know how to talk to your customers. So pretty much just throwing away that $1,000 or $500 that it costs you. You need to get that right, because even if you have the idea, doesn't mean that you necessarily know how to express the idea.
Correct. And yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And it's exactly the same with the numbers. And one of the challenges entrepreneurs have is when they've got somewhere their accountant or bookkeeper doing all the numbers for them, the data entry, the bookkeeping work, they don't know whether they're doing a good job or not, because they don't know anything about it. And time again, I've had business owners come to me and they've said to me, I've had a series of 3, 4, 5, 6, in one case even more than that, bookkeepers doing my books, and each time kind of something happens and either they disappear or they walk, or they move on or something. But then the next one comes on and says, well, the person before did all this work wrong. And so then the next one says, so over that time period, they kind of come to the realization that A, they don't know what the bookkeeper's doing to know whether it's done right. And B, is the person telling them the truth when they say the one before them has made a mess of it and they've got to tidy it up? Or are they the one that's making the mess because you just don't know? And that in itself is a serious challenge that, as I say, I get that all the time, finding someone who knows. And, where I sit in my financial educator section is that as a business owner, you don't need to know how to do that. When you're starting out, I don't think it hurts to learn how to do it for a little while. When you're starting out, don't have a lot of transactions, so it's not a lot of work, but you can start to see and get a bit of understanding of what it is, because it does help when you've got someone doing it for you to know whether they're doing it correctly or not. But the other side of it isn't really about doing it. It's more about when the numbers are presented to you, what are they? What do they mean? And how can you see through the numbers to the stories they're telling? Because the numbers are telling you a story about what's happened in your business. And that's the historical numbers. But for me, where we should be looking at is in the future. So whilst we've got two eyes in front of us, we always look forward. Looking over your shoulder, it gives information, but we need to be focusing on the future. So knowing enough to know, okay, those are the numbers that we did have, and this is what they mean to make decisions. But now what are we going to do differently in the future to get a different result? And so it's knowing how to use the numbers. That's the part the entrepreneur needs to know. But at the same time, you need to understand whether or not the person who's helping you out with the bookkeeping, your accountant, is doing it properly, correctly for you. And that's really hard.
It is. And I believe it's more like, almost everybody, or at least everybody, should know that they shouldn't be signing a contract blindly without reading it. And they have to have a basic understanding. Maybe you don't understand every single word, because the lawyers will make it kind of legal, but you need to understand.
They talk in legal speak, and accountants usually talk in finance speak, but I try not to. That's one of my kind of simplify things down. But yeah, you've got to have responsibility and take that responsibility, because it's your business. And abdicating it to the accountant or the lawyer or the something else and saying, oh, I'll just sign. I mean, I met a guy a few years back now. I was at a conference I was presenting at, and he came up to me afterwards and said, I'm going to confess something to you. Okay, fine. He said, I've been in business for 25 years. I have no idea about the money and the numbers, nothing. My mother does it. And I go with my mum to the accountant and I just sign wherever she tells me to sign. Now, okay, kudos. He's been going 25 years, so must be doing something relatively right. However, he did say business was on the downward slide. But a couple of other things came out of my mind on that. Number one, was mum doing the right thing by son? I don't know. This is pure conjecture because I don't know anything about the guy. But did she do the right thing, or did she actually, take money out for herself and leave him with not so much? Don't know. Second thing is, if he'd been in business for 25 years, how old do we think mum is? So let's assume he started business at 25, which is probably a bit generous considering how old he looked. But let's say he was 50. Mum would have to be 70 something, at least. So not only is mum now very old, well, you know, relatively, but how much longer is mum going to be able to do that? And he's there running this business with no idea. And I just was blown away, absolutely blown away that he could get that far without having any idea. You know, that mum has not made any attempt to try and help him and just tell him about bits and pieces, you know, this, that, we've made this much profit this year, or this much, the revenue's gone up 10% or down 10%. I don't know, just basics. He had no idea. Scary as that one. And I don't know whatever happened. So it was probably 5 years ago now. And I just, you know, it gives me the horrors, that, because, you know, a whole stack of levels. But that's a great example of, you know, abdicating responsibility to somebody else. But my big concern is that a lot of businesses fail because of a poor cash flow management, lack of understanding of the numbers, and generally poor management, ultimately, which tends to be financially related, you know, or has a financial impact. And just for the want of a bit of knowledge could have got them into, you know, made different decisions, not put them in the situation they've ended up in. And in some cases, potentially some advice early on that would have meant perhaps not starting in business at that point the way they did. Because one of the other challenges that startups have in the early days is having enough money to start. Having enough money to get the business off the ground, to do that marketing, to pay the bills in the early days of the business, and to pay the household bills. I mean, you know, if you're living kind of paycheck to paycheck, well, you need to have money in from the get-go in your business, and it rarely happens quite like that. So having enough, you know, runway of money is one way of people talking about it. I call it a stash of cash. Having that stash of cash and knowing that I've got enough money to last me, let's say, 6 months. I've got enough money to pay my household bills for 6 months, enough money to get the business up and running, because I think in 6 months' time, I should have this much income coming in, and then, you know, I can start to, you know, you need to plan it out. I've just seen too many over the years that great ideas and give up the job to go into it full time, which sounds great, but they haven't got the financial backing. And if they'd got the advice at the beginning, the advice maybe should have been, stay in your full-time job, build this up as a side hustle. Yes, it will be hard work, but hey, being an entrepreneur was never going to be, you know, walk in and, you know, making money in 2 seconds flat, nice and easy. It was always going to be some hard work, at least to get started. You know, do a little bit of that. And when you've got some traction on it and some money coming in, then quit your day job and do it as a full-time exercise. So,
and that's kind of one of the rules of business, right? Use all those people money to build your business, right? Now, and when you're working with somebody part-time, whatever, you have these other sorts of income that's helping you build the foundation of your business. You know, there's so many businesses that they and you know, once you come out and realize what was affected.
Oh, you're cutting out on me a bit.
Wasted. Make impact in your business. So numbers, learning how to effectively allocate your money and your funds for your business, that actually important. It's what makes the difference between survival or not. The most business wrong, you know, they They don't succeed in the first 5 years, and that's why lack of preparation, lack of planning, lack of sustainability, and you cannot plan for 3 months. Right now, we've been over almost a year. COVID-19, how many business being under already worldwide?
Yeah,
And this is
exactly.
a extreme case, but it's not a rare case because in a smaller label, in a small um, way, it does happen every 5 years. There's some kind of recession.
Correct.
You know, this is a huge one, but there's
And,
always.
yeah, and I think what's happened now with COVID-19 is what is what has happened is the businesses that were unsustainable in the first place have
Mhm.
gone down very, very quickly. So those that weren't well set up, uh, in some case, like it depends on the industry, because some industries, they've had to shut
Yeah.
their doors, and like planning for that for an extended period of time. No, we probably never would have had that as a worst case scenario. Uh, but in other cases, that in some industries, the ones that just weren't well funded, well thought out, well planned, were going from real week to week, they probably wouldn't have survived at some point up in that 5 years. Like they would have been a casualty of their mismanagement at some stage. This has just, accelerated that. But certainly there are some businesses that were extremely good operations, that were financially viable, that were doing really well, that have been forced to shut, that have managed to survive for a period during that shutdown, but not able to survive the length of it. So, they had enough money to survive some. And of course, all of our governments have been providing various levels of support. I know, in Australia, we've had various different levels of support to help keep our staff employed and so that kind of thing. And that has helped some businesses to kind of help buffer. And while they had that stash of cash so that they had money to keep going for a few months, the extra government support has helped to, continue to keep it, help them to maintain that while still kind of cutting into their cash flow. But they're, some of those though still, as I say, they're good businesses, and I know some here that are just gone. And the challenge on that, certainly now and I read something the other day that they're saying here they're expecting, I think, mid next year to be when a lot of Australian businesses will, go under, will go bankrupt, go into liquidation, shut their doors, because our financial support is, we've had quite a lot through till the end of September. We've got some more to December and March. Those are kind of easing down, sort of stepping it down. But once March hits next year, there's no support at this point. And, potentially then a couple of months after that, that's when the big crunch is going to happen here. And for me, it's the tragedy of any business that goes under, whether it's COVID related or not, is it's not just the entrepreneur. It's any of the people that do business with them, whether they're the suppliers or the customers, they're impacted in some way.
Mhm.
The family members of their entrepreneur, if they, whatever that family is, they're impacted. So you've got breakdown of family relationships. You've got potential here of, loss of houses, loss of, not being able to pay the mortgage or the rent, potentially having to move in with family. And that creates a whole other realm of stresses and things. And so it's the whole ripple effect across the broader community. One business going down, never a good thing for the immediate, community around it, but you get the multiples. And I'm sorry, but I'm looking down the barrel of, another Great Depression in my mind. Like, I hope it's not that bad, but you know, I just think that we haven't realized just the economic impact and the flow-on effect this is going to have. And the governments are doing everything they can to shore it up, to try and, you know, avert that. But there's a limit to how much they can do too.
But
You know,
is the
the big corporates are putting staff off. They're looking for jobs. The entrepreneurs are, you know, having to shut down their business. They're looking for jobs. So we've got the employees that are out of work looking for work, and we have entrepreneurs who've been forced to, you know, close the business because they've run out of money, and now they're looking for a job, and it's like, how does that end? I'm not an economist, so it's just, I'm a positive person by nature, and I'm optimistic, but I just am very worried about what that does to our communities, and how we're going to get through it in the long term, because it's not going to go away tomorrow.
No, especially if it happens again. You know, that's going to be scary. Like I think here, I was just seeing an article. It's only 60% of the population haven't got the COVID. So there's still a potential 60% of the population getting it. And that's just going to freeze them. And they're already talking over here that it's going to be worse than the Great Depression. It's going to be worse.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's in my mind. I hadn't heard that bit, but yeah, I just can't see it not being.
Yeah. You know, the economy is not, and the people are not paying the taxes because they're not working. What is the money that the governments are giving? Where is that coming from?
Exactly.
You know, they don't make money.
No.
They keep the money. They manage the money that they got. So, yes.
And that's one of the things that's been, you know, there's a sector of the community here that's kind of says, well, because of the way our government support has been run, if you're eligible, you're eligible. Now, some people are eligible but don't necessarily really need it. But because you're eligible, well, you take it. And so there's some people there going, yeah, but that's fine. But our children and our children's children are going to be paying this off in taxes in their lifetimes. But, you know, I kind of also go, if the government doesn't give support, it's got to be even worse. I mean, I don't think they had choices, really, because it would have been widespread, you know, disaster very, very quickly. At least with having some support, it's a bit more measured and calculated and kind of planned out. And I guess the beginning, we all hoped it was just a, you know, a flash in the pan. It would be over in a couple of months and we'd all go back to normal. But we've got one of our major cities here that the population has been in lockdown for, I think now, I'm just trying to think I think they went to lockdown in July. So that's been probably almost 8-10 weeks or something now. Only allowed within 5 kilometers of home, a 1-hour exercise outside, and only one person in the family can go to the grocery shopping, and not allowed to visit anyone. No restaurants, no shops, nothing's open. Stay at home, except for your 1 hour to go out and do some exercise and to go to, say, grocery shops. Obviously medical appointments, anything, you know, essential, but that's it. You can't go and visit your mum, you can't go and visit your sister, your grandkids, you can't go and do anything.
I know. And it's hard. You know, and every economy is handled different.
Right.
For that, a lot of countries are not getting any support, like the national any support from the government. And you can see, you know, they were in the poverty line. Now they're on the ground.
Yeah.
So it's a global recession.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is impacting every single human on this planet, and that has a consequence
Yeah. Yeah.
that continue for a long time. The whole supply chains being affected, the trade war that's going on, that has ripple effects.
Of course.
We're going back to 20 years ago where everything was national. Um, but there is a consequence to that because that means the cost of doing business is going to go up. And business, in order to survive, they're going to pass that along to the customers.
That's right.
So now
Yeah.
everything, back, you know, I remember when a pair of Nike was like 120, $150. Only so many people could afford that.
Yep.
A $6 salary back then.
Yep.
So
It's going to widen the chasm between those that have and those that have not. And, I've talked about in some of my writing and other things I've done about the haves and the have-nots, in the sense of those that have work or business that's operating and those that have not got work or business that's operating. But I think what's going to happen is we're going to have that bigger divide between the very, very wealthy and the ones that have nothing. That middle section, we're just going to strip it apart and go, if you've survived, you're going to be up in the wealthy small percentage, and then everybody else is going to be down at the, that very, very low level. And that middle section, which is the bulk of many economies now, I think it's going to have the heart ripped out of it. And they're either going to be able to survive and move up into the wealthy brackets, or they're going to slip down into the lower income brackets or lack of income, and those that are at the low are just going to be, as you say, on the ground. It's and that's that's a whole. We've done so, like, the shame of it is, in a sense, we've done so well to equalize things. Sure, they're the billionaires and they're the Bill Gates and Warren Buffetts of the world that have got gazillion millions of dollars. That's okay. But the vast majority have been, relatively comfortable. They've got money coming in, got enough money to put food in their mouths, a roof over their head. Like, there's always going to be the level at the bottom. But I think, there's been a better balance there. And I think that's going to disappear. And so it's an interesting, challenging time for me where I'm sitting, because I look at, educating business owners and how can I help them to do that, whilst at the same time, putting a roof over my head, my family's head, and food on our plates. There's a limit to how much you can do for nothing. But at the same token, I've produced a lot of free material. There's a lot of articles I've written, videos I've done, my podcast. And I think for me, through this time period, I will continue to be producing that freely available material, so that those that want to learn but don't have the financial resources to pay for it can have access to it. And those that do have the financial resources to pay and do something more at a higher level, then, I can do that too. But it's, I just think that for those of us that have the ability to support others, and our ability to do so in what we do in a way that can help others, I think, it took me a long time to work out that, the reason I'm on this planet was to help others and to educate them on the numbers. And I've even from a little girl, felt that I was here for a reason. As I say, that there was something, I had a purpose. There was something I needed to find out that I needed to do. It wasn't just, go to work, come home, pay, live kind of. I felt there was always something deeper than that. And yes, I'm not really a slow learner, but on that one, I was a slow learner, and it took me a long time to work out what I should be doing. And so, you know, to the ability that I can, and, you know, thank you for having me on the podcast here to be able to share some of my insights and information, because that's how I can help other people. Like, you know, in my general view, if one person listens to this and it makes a difference, yes, I've done my job. Like, I've fulfilled my purpose. I've done what I'm supposed to be doing. Hopefully it's more than one person and I reach a much bigger audience with everything I do. But, you know, it is that one person at a time, one change, and that ripple effect that can impact through. So that's, I think, you know, one of the things that comes out of this is that we do need to change our education system in a way that allows entrepreneurs, people that want to go into business, to have some kind of training so that they have the foundations to start business the right way, in a way that sets them up for success and sets them up to succeed and do what they want to be doing with it, rather than allowing anyone to just say, oh, I'm going to start business today. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And where's the support? Where's the information? Where's the basics for that? And if some of that can come out as a result of all of this, then that's a good thing.
And that's the thing. That's what some people don't realize. A small business entrepreneurs, they're the backbone of every society. They're the one that makes things happen, the one that produce jobs. So they're very important. Ideas, new ideas, it's very important. And sometimes our governments don't do enough to stimulate that. You know, we think about workers, but guess what? How many workers are going to be on top of everything that happened with COVID-19? The world changing, the work environment changing. Now you can work from home. That's not going to change because it's cost effective for businesses. But that means you're going to get paid less, because I can hire somebody else for a lower place anywhere in the world.
Correct.
Anywhere in the world. But on top of that, we got all this amazing advanced and AI technology, drones. Now everything's going to get delivered on drones. How many jobs one drone alone would take away? The delivery person, the pilots, you know, the person that do the heavy lifting. You don't need that. You got drones. There's drones that can lift so many pounds. Like also, like I think there's one that can lift up to 6,000 pounds. So we need to think, because that's a lot of people without a job, and eventually they're gonna start thinking about starting their own business, because they still need to eat. They still need to sustain themselves. But and every single person that starts, they just go fail. They're just going to be a very vicious cycle, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We definitely need to train them. So that's very important what you do. How would they find you?
So you can find me on amandafisher.global. www.amandafisher.global is the easiest way to find me. And from that, you can access all of my free material and other things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any other things that you want to tell, like what should they be looking for, on the basis, what they should be looking for on a business to start? Like, what is your golden nugget?
Right. I think if I can have a couple of golden nuggets, Thank you. The first one is to not be afraid of your numbers. And I think some people think that it's complicated. The accountants are kind of in their profession are kind of made out that we do this magic stuff with the numbers, and and it's complicated. And it's not. Accounting is actually additions and subtractions. We occasionally multiply and divide and do some percentages. That's it. And the reality is that an accounting system does all of that for you anyway. So if you're thinking, I'm no good at maths, flip that on its head and go, I can learn what those numbers mean. And it's not about the maths. It's about what the numbers mean. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, in today's world, particularly, it's what I alluded to earlier about not looking over your shoulder at the past, but planning the future. As accountants, we often talk about doing, budgets and cash flow forecasts. And I usually get the response, or quite frequently get the response, but I have no idea what my income is going to be, next week, next month, in 3 months' time, because I don't know who's going to come shopping. I don't know who's going to buy. And, it doesn't mean anything to me. It just seems like a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. And the reason why is because, well, first of all, that's the 12-month kind of, month by month, this is our plan for 12 months. And a lot of times that's been set and then forgotten about, which is not the way to treat it. But in today's world, something else that I've always been doing, but is even more important now, is a 12-week, week-by-week forecast. And part of that is looking at what expenses do you have to pay, what are your bills, when do you have to pay them. If you're paying rent, what date of the month is your rent due? If you're paying wages, what day do you pay your rate wages? Your utility bills, your cell phone bills, what dates are those due? And start plotting down week by week what you need to pay each week, week by week by week, for 12 weeks. So, once you've got 1 month done, it's pretty easy then to duplicate the second and third month of that 12-week period. And then start looking at how much money you know or believe is coming in on a week by week basis. And that's a bit more of a guess, and I understand that. Some businesses, it's easier than others. But in doing that, you can then see either how much money you need to be banking, because this is all your money going out, or if you do know you've got some money coming in, if there's a shortfall, or if there's enough to keep going. And in a normal world, in the old world, if you will, we used to do this to work out, okay, over the next 12 weeks, do we have any weeks that we've got a problem, the cash flow is minus, we don't have enough money coming in? Because if that's in, say, week 6, okay, we now have 5 weeks to get some more money in, to work out how to sell some more, to talk to perhaps a customer or client to get them to pay a bit earlier, do something to help so that at that 6-week mark, you're okay. In today's world, it's a bit more about, okay, so how much is it costing me each week? How much money do I need to have? And potentially then going, okay, well, I've got this much money left. I've got this much money I know is coming in, and it's only going to last me for 10 weeks. So what am I going to do? How am I going to handle that? Is there some way I can, bring some income forward? Can I negotiate with my suppliers to, delay payments? Having those conversations. So knowing just how much money you need in every week. Averaged over the month, that's fine, but kind of week by week, I think for a lot of businesses now is really important to have that, and to be doing your best to plan what the next coming period is. Because I find when I've done that, and I do it myself all the time, I've been doing it for years, and I forget to do it sometimes. I drop off and don't. And then I find that I'm stressing about the money. Okay, oh gosh, I wonder whether I can pay the bills next week because I haven't mapped it out. But the moment I map it out, it's like, oh, yep, I'm good. I know I've got a problem in 6 weeks or 10 weeks time. But because of that, I know I can work towards it not be a problem at that point in time. So it's really about focusing on the future and looking at what's your minimum revenue you need just to keep yourself afloat. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, we want to be making profits, but for now, for some biz people, it's just about keeping your head above water until we can find a bit of an upswing in the business. So yeah, focusing on the future is the big one, and just don't bury your head in the sand on the numbers. Just, you've got to face them.
Yeah, you have to face it. You have to be obsessed about them. And myself, and I actually been doing it. I've been doing my numbers, but I've been doing it monthly. So I'm going to take your advice and actually start doing it weekly now, because I think that's pretty awesome. So
good. Oh, please, I've made a difference to you too. Excellent.
You already impacted my life. So, yeah, thank you so much. Do you have any other golden nuggets? Or
I've got plenty really, but the big one now is it's really, for some businesses it's about survival. For others, it's about making sure that a growth, because some businesses are doing extremely well through this. For those businesses, it's about doing what you can to plan for that, at the same time making sure that the growth is sustainable, and that, because sometimes growth can be just as challenging as starting out. So making sure that that's sustainable and you're still looking at your numbers, even though business is booming. And certainly I know some industries are really doing very, very well.
I know that I take decisions on the potential return. So if I had two choices, I'm always going to choose the one that has the most potential.
Absolutely.
But you need to know your basis number to be able to do that. And,
Correct.
And it's a gamble, but you still, an educated gamble.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there are kind of three different types of numbers. There's the essential numbers that you need just as a baseline foundational numbers. Then there are the management numbers to focus on to manage the business. And then there are the growth numbers that can, when you're growing your business, what numbers to be looking at there. And I found there's a correlation between situations in your business and the numbers you need to look at. So it's not about looking at the same numbers all the time. It's about knowing what are the circumstances you're in right now and what numbers you need to be looking at to help you through that circumstance. And that's what I call my profitable business, modern business framework, which is, if I'm allowed to say, it's in my new upcoming book that's being released in November called Strangled by the Numbers. And I go through that framework because I think often we just think it's every single number we need to focus on this and this and this and this and look at all these numbers. But in reality, what I've identified is that depending on the circumstances in your business, you need to be looking at specific numbers. So I'm very excited about that launch coming up a little bit later this year.
Awesome. And it has a very catchy name. You're very good at names. That's a very catchy name. I'm sure I'm going to read it. That's for sure. So that's pretty amazing. Thank you. Do you have any last words? Or
just focus on your numbers and be looking to see through them to the stories they tell, because they will tell you a story.
Thank you. So all about storytelling.
That's exactly. Make your numbers count. That's the other one. That's my other little tagline is make your numbers count.
That's awful. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful having a chat with you. I really enjoyed it.
Yes, definitely. We must do it more often. Yeah. I think it's congratulations on your book launch.
Thank you.
Thank you for the job that you're doing, and you'll welcome to come back anytime. And hopefully I can go visit you over there in Australia, right?
Sounds
um,
good.
it sounds good. But thank you for having me. This is another episode of the Founders Time podcast. And ciao. Let me stop.